Allie with the Potomac Bead Company, and today I want to show you how to do some tubular peyote with 2-hole beads. So some of the new beads that we get in, a lot of times I like to do simple stitches. I'll do flat peyote with, I'll do herringbone with, to try out the different shapes that come out and see what they look like in the forms that we're all used to doing with those different stitches. What I'm going to show you today is how to do a tubular peyote stitch with some of those new 2-hole beads. The example piece that I have here is the actual quarter tila. So if you haven't checked those out yet, these are the quarter tilas, and they are like they're called a quarter of a tila bead. So there's a ton in a tube here, and these are the bronze metallic of the quarter tila. The quarter tila itself is a 5 by 1.5 millimeter, and they are used in this tubular peyote stitch to make a nice chain. I actually love how this looks and love that boxy look because it actually looks like an actual real chain. I'm going to be switching it up as I do it with you guys and using some of the new Checkmate diamonds, which are a 2-hole diamond. And just like I did with the quarter tilas, I'm going to do the exact same thing with the 2-hole diamond. This way you'll get to see the difference in the shape and how that can really affect the style of the rope. For the rope, you can also do this with mini duos, you can do it with super duos, you can do it with bar beads or with bricks. It gets a little bit chunky, but most of those thin, slender 2-hole beads, you'll be able to do this with. So it's kind of a cool, you can do it with anything. It looks completely different depending on which beads you use. If you do want to build along with me and learn this tubular herringbone with the 2-hole bead, you can either grab some quarter tilas, mini duo, super duo, like I said, the bar bead, or I'm going to be using that new 2-hole Checkmate diamond bead. I'm using it in the turquoise color, and I'm going to be using the Miyuki seed beads in the Aztec Gold. So the Aztec Gold 11-0 seed beads here are manufactured in Japan by the Miyuki Company, and then the Miyuki Company sends them to the Czech Republic to get that nice Aztec Gold coating that has a 100% match to a lot of those awesome new Czech beads that we have finishes coming out for you. To do this tubular peyote, you are going to need some thread. Because of the color beads that I'm working with 0.006 wildfire beading thread in the green color. I have a size 10 needle here that I'll be putting on my thread. And then I have my full tube of my Checkmate diamonds. These are actually some samples that I got sent and I filled up. It fills a full tube. And I'll be making a bracelet out of that. Whether or not you want to make the bracelet a slip-on bangle, which I'll be showing how to do, or you can put a clasp on it. If you do want to use something else, like I said, I have those quarter tila beads, and I've used them for other projects, but I only really used about a half of a tube and I'm almost done with that bracelet. I also have a bead mat, a nice workable surface. I have a needle nose pliers to flatten out the end of the thread, and my thread burner to burn off the edges of the thread to get it off the spool and then flatten it out to put on the actual project itself. Like I said, I'm going to be doing this tubular peyote stitch and then making it a bangle and stitching the ends together. I'll be showing you how to do that with both the Checkmate diamonds, and also I haven't finished off the bracelet, so I can kind of reiterate it and show you in more detail how you're actually going to make that one continuous unit. The pattern that we're using to string creates a little bit of a diagonal stitch look. You can see that those bars and the seed beads actually spin around the project, so I'll be doing that as well as we continue to grow that fun tubular peyote stitch. So go ahead and get out your beads and your thread. Chances are you will need to add thread to this project. Start out with about 5 feet of thread on your needle, and you'll put a stop bead at the very end of the thread. We'll then get ready to do our tubular peyote, and we are going to do our tubular peyote in a count of 3. You can make it thicker by adding and doing a bigger count, but 3 is kind of the minimal count that you can do, and the idea is a stackable bangle that you can wear these together. So I'm going to keep to that 3 count to make it nice and thin. Also, a 3 count is pretty perfect for if you're making this to go with a pendant. Say you've watched one of the other YouTube videos, it's kind of striking when you actually do a seed beaded pendant and you have an actual rope to go with the pendant, not just a little chain. So here's to learning the tubular peyote with some of these new check beads, as well as the new Miyuki beads too. And we're going to go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we are going to do to get started is put a stop bead on to the bottom of our thread. Because I'm going to make it continuous, I'm not adding the clasp or closure yet. Also, a lot of times when adding that clasp or closure, if you would want to include something else in the middle, you can always add crystals in, kind of make it bigger and then smaller. There's some other videos to do that. It's a good idea just to wait to add the clasp till the end of the project. So to start out, we have a bead. The bead is not in the project anywhere, and we are going to let it go down to the end of the thread, leaving us about 3 inches at the bottom of the thread. This 15-0, then I'm going to go back through, away from that 3 inches of thread, and take the thread through once, and then again twice. This is going to expose the thread 2 times on the side of that 15-0. And like I said, it's a bead that's not in the project, so that way I know that it needs to come off at the end. And also I don't get confused knowing which beads to go through. To start the pattern, like I said, it's going to be a pattern of 3. So when you're doing it, you're going to end up with 3 beads kind of sticking up at the end of each section. It's also going to determine how wide your tube is. So if you want it wider, again, you're just going to add more beads. I'm going to be adding in a grouping of 3. When I add the grouping of 3, I'm adding an 11-0 and then one of my diamond beads. 11-0, diamond bead, 11-0. That pattern is going to stay consistent throughout the entire rope. Let that drop down next to your stop bead. And what we're going to do is round it out. So we are going to round it out by taking our needle and thread back through the first 11-0, the first diamond, second 11-0, second diamond, and out. That's going to create a little bit of like a triangle effect because it's a grouping of 3. After this, we are going to do what's called a step up. Every time we step up on the project, the thread and needle is going to go from one direction to a second direction. So basically, my thread and needle right now are heading away from me off camera to the top. I'm going to step up by taking the thread and needle through that same diamond, going through the second empty hole with the needle coming down in the opposite direction. There you have your first step up. Da, da, da. So from here now we have a second hole. We have a second hole to all of those diamonds that we need to catch to create and start that tube. When we are going to start here, I'm going to start by adding a diamond and then an 11-0, sewing through the next diamond in line. Every time you do a row, you're going to be adding 3 diamonds and 3 11-0s. Again, coming out of a diamond, add the diamond and 11-0 through the third diamond. Next one, same deal, and I have a lot of thread on here. Next one, same deal, diamond, 11-0. And then we're going to go back through that same hole of the first diamond that our thread was coming out of, as well as the first diamond that we added on this third or the second row. So we're going back through the first one. That's going to complete our addition because we added the 3 diamonds and the 3 11-0s. You can kind of force those to sit up if you want. And then what we're going to do is our step up. To do the step up, you're always going to go through that same first hole of the first bead that you put on in the new row. So again, we put on 3 of our diamonds. I'm going through that first hole of the first bead that I put on. Now we get to do our step up again. So you want to make sure that you have no thread exposed, that the thread is not intertwined there. My thread got looped around, so I'm just going to pull it nice and tight. You don't want to get to the end of the project and think, oh, how did I get that thread there? At this point, I'm going to turn those diamonds so they're kind of sticking up. Stepping up then, I'm going to go from the outer or the bottom hole of that diamond duo to the top hole of the same one. It exposes a little bit of that green thread on the side. Because of the color of the bead, you really won't see it. It's not going to be like this in high def and magnified. It's going to be on your wrist. do a nice little tight pull, and that's going to pull all the thread that you have. When you are reversing the thread, you're going to reverse the pattern. So I know it's a little bit hard to kind of think about, but we are starting that diagonal. So the first bead that I'm going to put on in this third row is an 11-0, and then my diamond. Go through the next diamond, give a nice tight pull, and then again 11 diamond through the next one. By the fifth row or so, it's really a lot easier to hold. 11 diamond through that first one. Again, remember to do my step up, I need to go back through the first diamond that we added. So I'm going to go back through the 11-0 and go back through that first diamond that was added. Turning those diamonds up then, I'm going to reverse the thread, go through that first diamond, the opposite direction, and that's going to be my step up. So every other time that I do the beads, we're going to be reversing what we pick up first, the 11-0 or the diamond first. When you're coming out of the diamond, you can tell whether or not you have to put on a diamond or the 11-0 first based on the direction that you're going. So here I know I need another diamond to sit right next to it. So I know my diamond and then my 11-0 go on into the next bead. Like I said, about 5 rows up, you'll be able to really see this taking shape. Diamond goes on, and then the 11. The nice thing with these diamonds and the actual quarter tail is they don't have a front or a back, so you don't need to worry about which hole you're picking up. Diamond, 11, back through that first bead that your thread was coming out of, which you can know that because it's always going to have that little step up, and then through that first diamond that you added on this row. Give a nice tight pull, back up through the diamond. When I'm coming out of the diamond and reversing here, I know that if I add another diamond bead, it will reverse that nice line that I have going, and it'll kind of push it to the other way. So I know, and looking at the one before it, that the 11-0 has to go first and then the diamond. So again, it's going to switch. Every time you switch the thread, which way the 11-0 is going to go on. I'm putting the 11-0s here also to help this keep shape and form. If I was using all diamonds, it would be really stiff. So generally speaking, with the 2-hole seed beads, you're going to want another seed bead, or the 2-hole beads, you're going to want a seed bead there anytime you're doing this tubular peyote to make it flexible and not super stiff. There I have my next row, and you can see it's starting to take shape now. It's a little bit wider than this one, even though it's 3 beads, because the beads are just a little bit chunkier. From here, I'm coming out that first bead, step up, and we get to continue. Now I know based on this step up and where I'm going, that that bead here needs to do a diamond first because I'm following in my line. So I need to do a diamond first and then my 11-0, and I'll continue on. So as I continue to get length, I wanted to show you that it has a little bit of spring to it, as a lot of the different tubular stitches do, and show you the difference in the look from the different beads. You can see that nice diagonal happening a lot more with the bigger bead because of the actual size of the bead. That being said, it's also going quicker when it's getting that tubular shape because it is a little bit bigger, so it's a little bit less of that stitching issue and a little bit less stitching time. As you're working on it too, I just wanted to let you know it's really important to kind of get that tension right, so you make sure to maintain that. Also, if you don't want the spiral look and you want it to have a straight line look, what you would do is always pick up the same exact order. So always pick up the 11-0 and the diamond duo, the checkmate diamond, 11 diamond, 11 diamond, or 11 quarter, 11 quarter. Doesn't matter whether or not you're switching directions. After the step up, you would always do the same. In that case, again, you'll get more of that line pattern rather than the actual swirl pattern, which is what I wanted to go for. So it's fun to do all of these different stitches with new beads and to see what they look like and the fun of them. I'm actually really loving this Checkmate diamond bracelet. I may have to make a bunch of them to wear them all together. And using the seed beads, I actually did them so that way I could wear them together as stackable bracelets. So I'm going to continue building, but just wanted to do that little stop, show you how it's going, and continue to build my Checkmate diamond rope. So finishing up here, I am going to show you how to add the ends together to make this a roll-on bangle. I was going to do the same thing with the Checkmate diamond, but as I was making it, I realized I have the perfect clasp for it that I really love. This is a Clasp garden clasp. It's a magnetic clasp, and it has that Art Deco magnet. And this clasp I've been meaning to use, and I love it, and I really love the way that that bracelet turned out. So selfishly, I am going to put the clasp closure on that. So I'll take that out of the package. I'm going to show you how to attach this clasp to the turquoise one, and then I'll show you how that if you would want to do it as a bangle, that you can do it completely. So I'm going to move that turquoise one off screen right now and just go in with the quarter teal one. So when you're doing the bangle, we started off the end here that we just started with 3 beads, basically. We have our 3 of our quarter tielas, and then our 3 11-0 seed beads. What I'm going to do is actually remove the stop bead and remove the 11-0 seed bead, so that way we can actually attach it to the other end. We'll be adding on 11-0s then as we attach. So basically we're doing peyote here as well. So I just take off that stop bead. I'm going to take off those 11-0s. And if you need to, you can stick a needle on that end or go in with your needle and just kind of pull this apart. The reason, so some of you are probably saying, well, why didn't you just start with 2 of your quarter tielas right next to one another? The reason I didn't do that is because it makes it harder to get that first step. So it's easy to start with those beads. It's a nice area size-wise that you can kind of pinch on and get them. All right, so there we have it. We're going to remove the 11-0s. And I have the end there. So I have these 2 ends exposed that I have the two hold beads end to end style. We're going to be joining these together with an 11-0 and then sewing from one through the other. The same thing would occur if you're using the diamonds, if you're using super duos, any bead that you're using to create that bangle, you're going to do the same thing. So you have the 3 beads here on this end and the 3 beads on the other end. After you're coming out of the last section where your needle is attached, my pattern here would be an 11-0 and then adding another quarter tila and then going into this quarter tila. So I'm going to pick up an 11-0, pull that bracelet straight, turn over here towards the opposite end, and I have that 11-0 on my needle. I'm going to line up my beads so that way I have my tila next, and I'm going to sew in to the tila bead on the opposite side. You might have to hold your tail a little bit as you're working with it. Now I have those 2 sides connected, and it's continuing with the pattern. So I'm going to sew through the next half tila back on the side that we're working on, add an 11-0, spin these 2 ends around, grab the tila on the left side, and that links those 2. You can see it's seamless then. We're going to come back to the right hand side, grab the tila from the left, add an 11-0, grab the tila here on the left hand side, and then we're going to spin to grab the tila on the right hand side. I also just went through the 11-0 just to get that completely seamed up. Ta-da! It is all seamed up. The pattern continues in that nice diamond diagonal. And what I'm going to do is tie off this thread. To do so, I'm just going to trace back around that peyote line and that line that we stitched. And then tie a knot with the two ends together. Also, just for safekeeping, and because this is where it's going to get the most stress, is where these threads were kind of knotted together, also back into the project a little bit. Another idea that you can do that looks really cool is a lot of the times with these ropes, I'll put a larger beaded bead right in the middle and right where it connects. So I'm going to go in there. You can see I'm tying square knots right over left and then left over right. I'm going to leave that thread end there of the starter thread, and then the thread that I'm continuing with here, I'm just going to sew back in the project a little bit, pulling that knot in and getting those two thread ends away from one another so they don't end in the exact same spot. This is going to help to prevent the knot from coming apart, and also it just strengthens that connection point. Once I have it back a couple stitches, I'm going to take my thread zapper, my thread burner, burn off the edges, and then I have my bangle completely done. And it's a completely seamless unit that you aren't going to see where it started and where it ended. So once these thread ends are done, you can do a little glue on that knot if you want. I'm going to put this to the side. So that is how we're going to end the bangle. Either way, if we were doing the same thing on this side, I'd take those last seed beads off and we'd start adding them together, just adding one 11L. So again, I'm going to be using this magnetic clasp garden clasp. Oh, super strong magnet, whoa, which is awesome. So I have this magnet, goes great, and goes great with the idea of having that one as a bangle and wearing these together. So on the first end here, where I still have my needle attached, just like if I was going in and adding my next set, I've stepped up on the diamond. In addition to stepping up on the diamond, I've pulled the thread really nice and tight, and that way I don't have to worry about going in and having any thread exposed. And I'm just going to go in, add an 11L, 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 and that pulls it together like the opposite end. So on this one, because I'm putting on the clasp, I'm not going to actually take off those 11Os. I'm going to string back through that last set, closing that up even more. And now sticking with the peyote stitch, I'm going to go through the 11, skip over the diamond, add an 11, and go through the next 11. Skip over the diamond, go through the next 11. Skip over the diamond, add one more 11, and back through that first 11L. What that's going to do is pull that to a final point, stepping up through that first 11 that I just added. So I just added 3 11s that are sitting directly on top of those diamonds. And I'm just going to sew through those 11s, pulling nice and tight, and basically getting an end to the project. So you can see just that little bit of that peyote stitch there. From here, then I'm going to add my clasp, and whether or not you want to use a wire guard or go right into the clasp, that is up to you. I'm going to go right into my clasp, go through, and it's going to be a little bit difficult. That needle wants to get pulled towards the magnetic clasp. I'm going to put my thread through, then I'm going to continue around my loop here, back over through the next one, and go through my clasp, and back in through the next 11. So I'm just retracing the steps, and what I'm doing is getting that thread attached to the clasp. Go back through the clasp, back to the other 11, through the clasp, back through the other 11, get it nice and tight, and do it one more time, and then I get to flip over and do the exact same thing on the other side. So now that I have this nice end, I am going to knot off my project further along down inside. So I'm going to go back through the peyote stitch, back along the sides here, get to one of those bridge threads a little bit further down by reversing in the project, pulling one of those bridge threads, sewing underneath the bead and underneath the thread, making a knot on the project. And there you have it. One more time, going under the bridge thread, taking my needle through the knot, da-da-da-da, there you have it. So I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side, taking off the stop bead and then going in, and you can see I'm just taking this thread along the row here, just kind of finishing it up. Sometimes I'll just knot it off completely and tie it off. Here I'm just taking it back through the peyote a little bit, since it is going to be a little bit of that kind of roll-on style. And I'm just going right through the bracelet. Once I've gone through a couple times, I'll just take my scissors or my thread burner and just kind of chop that off. And you can see the magnet even wants to stick to my cutters there. On this other side, I'm going to take off the stop bead. I'm going to add my peyote on top and connect it to my clasp.